this.
Mhm.
It just wasn't about helping anybody.
No.
It was about making money.
Yes, yes, and that's what I got out of it too. Now, if they didn't put that they charged or something like that, maybe I would be more inclined to kind of believe them a little bit more that they're in this for the right reason. But clearly, when you say demon extraction, $10,000, non-demon extraction, $5,000, then we got a big issue here.
Yeah.
And the issue is money, is greed, and that is something that I don't understand how they can measure on a field that is unmeasurable.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and I would think, if you're extracting a normal spirit for $5,000, I think a demon would be a lot more than 10,000.
Yes, absolutely. But also it comes down to morally and ethically right.
All right.
I asked him the question. I said, so what if um, you have someone who can't pay this $10,000? Are you going to leave them in that spiritual affliction? And they mumbled. He sent me a voice message, and he mumbled. You can tell that he was kind of um, open mouth and start footing. You know, um, but I think once he got the notion of who I was and stuff like that, he changed his tune a lot, and he really didn't know what to say. So that's why even with that question, it went unanswered.
All right.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're saying you're doing this to help people and you're charging them, and then you bring up the point, well, what if they don't have the money? And you're like, well, I didn't think that far in advance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And also when you look at, I look at this as a ministry, helping people in this situation. So when you look at the Bible, with Peter and Paul and all the apostles, they helped in this manner too, but they never charged for services. Period.
Right.
So ministry is something that is free. Ministry is something that you don't make a dime off of.
All right. Exactly. And that's basically the way the whole paranormal field needs to be.
Yes, absolutely. I've been seeing where there's a good amount of teams that don't charge, but then you get these few that spawn up and they come out of the woodwork and they want to charge money for their services and stuff like that, and you know that ain't kosher. I don't charge for our services. However, we did have this one case many years ago. We had to travel a good ways for it too. And after the case, they wanted to give us some money. I'm like, no, I'm not charging for this. They're like, you don't understand. It's a donation. You can put it up in the bank and use it for gas to go to your cases or something like that. And I still didn't take it. So it's one of those things where there's a fine line between really helping somebody and greed and taking advantage of somebody.
Right.
And I think these people are taking advantage of people.
I have to say, I did take payment once.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the form of cookies.
Oh, hey, I can't turn a cookie down. or if they're offering a good steak dinner, I am game, baby. Oh man. So I got a question for y'all.
Okay.
How far away from Albuquerque, New Mexico are you all?
I would say about 8 hour drive, 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah. We're not that far.
Okay.
Yeah, because we can make New Mexico border in about 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because here in about Well, by April, May time frame, I'm going to be moving to Albuquerque.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm being moved there. So it's not my choice, but we will be moving. So now I can offer my services way out there.
Well, there you go. Because I don't know of anybody out here that does it.
No.
No, I don't think there's anyone out there either. Mm-mm.
Now it'd be cool to get trained, but to actually get
Yes.
properly trained.
Yes, you know what a lot of people don't know. You know when you go to a paranormal case, you know, and and the clients have all these outrageous claims, you know, but you go there and it's absolutely quiet. You have no evidence whatsoever, absolutely no evidence. But then you got to pay attention to the interview, you know, because there will be keys and clues that'll point you into the right direction. A good amount of the time, whenever this is happening, and the paranormal investigators come out with absolutely nothing at all, it was totally quiet. Usually, there is a demon hiding and doesn't want to be found out. And that's why a lot of these cases will be overlooked, is because they will go to the case, they will do the investigation, and sometimes they will miss the really small clues. And then you will probably miss out on the fact that there was something there, but it was making you think that it's not there. So, but I've got ways of finding out. It's very small, minute ways. Yeah, it's a really really neat when you get into the actual what can I say, the anatomy of a client interview, because that right there will actually point you in the right direction.
All right. And we got another question that came in.
Okay.
Is there reliable literature to research this topic? Amelia is interested in how it works.
Oh, reliable literature. Um, Unfortunately, there is. How can I put this? Um, First, you get your basis from reading scripture, like first and foremost. Scripture will not exactly tell you exactly how to handle the stuff, but it'll get your spiritual basis to where it needs to be. Because, for instance, you see Jesus casting out demons, you see the apostles casting out demons, and then you got to move from there to the teaching of the church. You know, what does the church teach about this? You know, and when I started doing this, I was a Protestant, you know, and not a non-denominational. But then I quickly realized that, in order to study this properly, I need to study it from the Catholic faith, you know, from the traditional faith, you know, because they have a lot more time invested in this. They have a whole lot more accounts of this stuff, you know, and that's why I was really really lucky to get together with Dave Considine. You know, he's a traditional Catholic, and he's been doing this for almost 30 years now. And he worked under probably about the best exorcist that there ever was, in Bishop Robert McKenna. You know, whenever he did an exorcism, it never had to be redone. And then he also learned from Ed Warren. You know, so what you have to do is take the basics. You know, you can even buy. There is a book. It's back here in my library. It's one of the oldest books that was ever written that I have in my library. It's The Letters of Witchcraft and Demonology, written by Sir Walter Scott back in the 1800s. You can read that, and that'll give you, a good basis too. I've got somebody that I'm training now, and I had her to buy the book called The Demonologist. It's a book about Ed and Lorraine Warren, and that'll give you an insight of how, Ed and Lorraine work and operate. But is there any text that can tell you verbatim, how to do things, step by step? No. You have to fill it out. You have to pick them out very, very strategically. There was one book that I have, is the Handbook of Spiritual Warfare by Dr. Ed Murphy. It is a really thick book. It is probably about the most comprehensive book that you can find on spiritual warfare. It is written in the Protestant mind frame, but there's a lot of traditional stuff that you can take out of that as well. But then the one thing that really helped me out a lot is learning about the sacramentals, like in the church. You have blessed salt, you have holy water, you have blessed oil, you have blessed metals, so that helps too. But to really get that firm teaching, you have to find someone who was trained by a religious demonologist and ask them to train you. That is really the only way that you will get that systematic approach.
Okay. Very cool. So you've been doing this for a while now. So
yes, ma'am.
I know with us, and I've always said this, because we've been on over 100 cases, and we have not come across anything that seems to be a demon. We've come across negative people, or a negative ghost, I should say. But in your opinion, how common are demon hauntings? I mean, is it really as common as TV makes it out to be?
You have to take it into the context of what you see and deal with versus what with someone like myself deals with. We always deal with just the demonic cases, so we get about 30 cases a year. But you take that and you compare it to all the paranormal teams like out there, and you compare it to how many cases they have a year, and it's a very low percentage of what is a demonic case, but I do want to emphasize that there's a lot of these demonic cases that are missed, because the paranormal team actually missed a small little clue. Like for instance, we had a case about 3 years ago, and this lady was showing just symptoms of something medically wrong with her. Okay, she was having symptoms of the fight or flight feeling. She was it even started out as a plantar fasciitis, and then anxiety. Then she started having these panic attacks, this fight or flight mentality. But one thing that struck me as odd is that she had thresh of the mouth. Then that led me to ask, has she ever had any kind of invasive procedure done, let's say chemotherapy or anything like that? And the answer is no. So that made me scratch my head. So her husband sent me the case request, and this is the first case request I've ever read that I had no questions about whatsoever. I didn't have to ask him to elaborate more on something. This man was a former Navy SEAL. This man is a man's man. He's got his head He's got his head on straight. He thinks logically and logically only. But for the